Champion of what?
A champion of what?
I can drop a world lead, I don't even like running. You gotta run fast just to go and get some money. I'm Noah Lyles K, you know how I'm coming. I ain't going to no Olympics, I ain't running, I ain't jumping. I can make 100,000 at the crib being funny.
On June 24th, weeks before leading up to the USA trials, I made this video.
Erryion Knighton was in court yesterday. We've seen him entered into hella meets this year, overseas, in the United States, world relays, all types of meets. And he has pulled out of every single meet this year. And a lot of people were wondering why. Last year, right before the Olympic trials, USADA, the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, put out the sanction that Erryion Knighton had failed to test for trenbolone. And their claims was he got it from contaminated oxtails, and they did a thorough investigation, and their investigation concluded just that. So he was able to run. Despite the science saying things like you have had to eat over 1,000 pounds of oxtails, which is just physically incapable or physically impossible to even have the small amount that he did have in, but clearly it was injected. That's what the people from the Court of Arbitration of Sports are saying. And since the USADA dropped the case, they decided to pick it up because the Chinese, they pressed the issue. In an article put out by ESPN literally today says, United States sprinter Erryion Knighton was in court Monday to defend his claim he was contaminated in a positive doping test case that risked a ban from the next World Championships. A two-time Olympic finalist in the 200 meters and just 21 years old, Knighton was cleared to run at the Paris Summer Games last year only after an American tribunal ruled he was not at fault for the positive test for trenbolone, a steroid used in livestock farming. WADA and Track and Field's AIU had challenged the ruling in combined appeals to the Court of Arbitration for Sports. The Court of Arbitration of Sports has scheduled an appeal hearing for 2 days, and it said a verdict is likely within several weeks. So the hearing is today and yesterday, and they shall have a verdict in several weeks. It says the U.S. National Championship starts July 31st in Eugene, Oregon. They are trials to pick the U.S. team for Worlds in Tokyo that starts September 13th. Knighton's attorney, Howard Jacobs, suggests last year Knighton could have been collateral damage and ongoing feud between WADA, USADA, fueled by how a case of alleged contamination of Chinese sprinters was handled by the global watchdog. USADA prosecuted Knighton's original case after he tested positive in March last year and accepted a no-fault ruling based on an explanation of contamination by the oxtails from a bakery in Central Florida. What they should have did, which they probably did, is went up there and ordered more oxtails to see if somebody would test positive, which more than likely they probably didn't do. And they still let it slide. Clearly, that was a cover-up. Every time someone tests positive, it's always a food contamination cover-up. And that's just the bottom line. But what do y'all think? Do y'all think that the Court of Arbitration of Sports will find Erryion Knighton guilty and suspend him for 4 years? Or y'all think they're going to let him off the hook?
So there it is. Today it comes out. The kid, Erryion Knighton, receives a 4-year ban. And I know a lot of people going to be like, I told you and this and that. I told y'all. Because one thing USADA is going to do, and Travis Tygart, the head of USADA, they're going to cover up these cases. So you really can't blame the athlete for real. And then even with Erryion Knighton, he is literally a part of a system doing what all the top athletes in the world do. He just was caught. And it was to the sloppiness of his team and his people in charge why he was caught. And even USADA. But a lot of people are going to be like, well, this and that, this and that. He should be responsible. Sure. But that's neither here nor there. That's not here what I'm here to talk about. I told y'all months ago after reading the case, it's literally impossible to eat a plate of any type of food and test positive in your blood days later for an anabolic steroid The science proved that for this to be the case, you literally would have to eat around 60 to 70 entire cows to even test positive for the smallest amount of trenbolone. And the fact that this was simple science and USADA took this case, played like they did some type of thorough investigation and swept it under the rug and was like, he's at no fault, this and that. We looked into it and we seen that there was no issue. Goes to show the corruption of Travis Tygart and USADA and the corruption in which they've been a part of for years. And when the World Athletics seen this case and the Chinese pointed it out, the feds did a sweep. They was like, oh, nah, man, USADA, we know they swept this shit under the rug because this shit made no sense. So what we're going to do, we finna send the feds to pick up this case. So they sent World Athletics and the AIU and WADA. And WADA came through. They did an appeal to the Court Arbitration of Sports against USADA and Knighton. And his appeal didn't go through. They looked into it. It says the evidence submitted by the athlete and his explanations of meat contamination scenario fell short of the required proof of source and were statistically impossible, which we all know. It made no sense from the get-go. It says the appeal is upheld, save for the request by World Athletics and WADA that the result is obtained by the athlete from the 26th of March of 2024. But yeah, it's a whole crazy situation. This is the corruption in which I've been telling you guys about. But Erriyon Knighton ban will be served from April 2024 until June or until April of 2028. So right before the Olympics in 2028. So he'll be able to come back and go to the trials and run the Olympics. Good thing like these next few years are like down years for real. But yeah, the kid, two-time world championship medalist, had 2 world championship medals by 19 years old or by 20 years old. But like I'll say, everybody is doing the same thing. Just when a protection runs out or the improper protection is put into place, that's when things get shaky. And USADA, they failed. They attempted to cover it up, but it didn't work because they attempted to cover it up and started pointing fingers at the rest of the world, hence China and their swimmers. And that got 50 more fingers pointed back at Knighton. And that got his case picked up by the feds. The feds did a sweep and boom, he gone. But the good thing is he's already super rich. Young as fuck, but he's already super rich. So he'll be good for the next 4 years or 3 years now. But hey, at the end of the day is going to end. And I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. Case never made sense. USADA knew it never made sense. They're super corrupt, and they try to sweep it under the rug. Bottom line.
World champion of what? World champion of what?
I can chop a world lead, I don't even like running. You gotta run fast just to go and get some money. I'm no Elias K, you know how I'm coming. I ain't going to no Olympics, I ain't running, I ain't jumping. I can make 100,000 at the crib being funny.